Well everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus and see if this specific phone is still worth it in 2023. Now I am probably going to tell you this phone is not only going to still be worth it this year, but it's going to be worth it for the next 3 or 4 years for sure. So if you currently own this phone, still a very solid device for sure. If you're planning on picking up this phone, I think it's a very solid option as well. If you want to buy it, links would be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the outside of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, on the front, we do have a 6.6-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and this was a very, very good panel. Although it may have not been as great as the S22 Ultra, I like this display a lot, and I still think it holds up very, very well. You have the hole punch display up top. It's a 1080p panel, but it's 120 Hz, so you kind of have this evening out of sorts. And I definitely do think this panel overall still looks very, very good. Again, you have a fingerprint sensor in the display and still looks good. Nothing's really going to change with this phone for the next few years, so still gets a thumbs up for me on the front. On the bottom, we had a USB-C port, which is great. You have Samsung DeX in there, and you can always expand the storage using external drives, whatever, through that port as well, which is nice. No headphone jack, no micro SD card slot, which was very, very sad. I wish this phone could have had it, but again, there's not much we could do in this specific situation. Now on the back, we do have our frosted glass back, which still holds up very, very well. I'm glad they went away from they still had a frosted glass back on the S21 Plus, but the S21 had that plastic back, and I was really iffy on whether they were going to put plastic backs on all their phones, the last year, and thankfully they didn't do it. So luckily for us, we still have a frosted glass back on this phone, which still holds up very, very well just from that standpoint. Now we do have that triple camera setup on the top left as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But overall, when I look at this phone, it is still a very, very good phone. From the build quality, from the display, from just the way it looks, it is a very good looking phone, and I am a massive fan of how this specific phone holds up in this specific year. Now we are getting very close to the Galaxy S23 and S23 Plus coming out, but that may actually end up making this phone a little bit better because this may end up being one of the last Plus phones we could be getting. There's a lot of rumors and leaks suggesting that the Plus lineup may actually go away, and we've seen many Pluses from Samsung. I remember we had the S6 Edge Plus many, many years ago, and maybe some other phones here and there, but the S8 Plus was kind of the first one to kind of make it, I guess, well known, and the S8, S9, S10, all the way up to the S23 potentially is probably going to be the last one. It's kind of sad when you think about it, but it is what it is. So if you want to get a Plus phone now, well, this may be one of the last options that you have. Now moving on to the camera side of things, this phone, like I mentioned, had that triple camera setup on the back, had a 50 megapixel wide angle lens, 10 megapixel telephoto lens, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and on the front it had a 10 megapixel wide angle lens. Now luckily for us, this camera is not only still a good camera in this day and age, but it is going to hold up so well for the next couple years, it's not even funny. This is a very, very good camera, and realistically speaking, no matter what you do, you are going to be having a very solid phone for many, many years to come. So for one, the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, the front camera 4K at 60, which is awesome. The back camera not only can do 4K at 60, but can also do 8K video. Now, there are not a lot of phones in the marketplace today that can shoot 8K video. So I don't want to just sit here and just kind of state over and over again how good this camera is, but it is a very solid camera, mostly because of the quality of those lenses, but also the fact that this camera has so many features built in. You have so many features built into this camera, like pro video modes, so many options. The only issue I would say maybe potentially that I've had with Samsung phones for the last few years is when you actually do use other applications, things like, Snapchat and TikTok and whatnot. The stock camera application has notoriously been really good for me. It's a little clunky, but it has a lot of features built in. But on the, TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram side, they've always been choppy. It's not really Samsung's fault. It's just these applications not utilizing the camera to their full potential. I guess we're going to see what happens in the future, but in my opinion, this specific phone gets a thumbs up from me just from that perspective alone. Now moving on to the actual software and the longevity portion, this specific phone, we are at a very interesting spot right now where this phone is realistically speaking going to last for a very long amount of time. So this phone is not going to be outdated today. It's not going to be outdated tomorrow. This phone is going to be lasting quite a bit of time. So I like that, from this phone in and of itself, because that means this phone is going to be here for several more years. So because of that, you can buy this phone today and you can still get software updates for many years after. However, do keep in mind, the way Samsung does their updates is a little bit different than other phone manufacturers. So when the next version of One UI comes out, let's say One UI 6, Well, the day that the Samsung Galaxy S23 end up getting their update will not be the same time the S22 gets their update. So it's going to be delayed, and then even like the next year after that, it's going to be even more delayed. So it's not my favorite situation to be in, but it is one of those things that ends up getting better and better throughout time. Like, at least you're still getting software updates, and even if you don't update day one, I guess it's still okay. So from that perspective, thumbs up from me. But like I mentioned, with the S23s coming out, you may want to wait out maybe just like another week or two. If you're already watching this past the S23, then by all means go for this phone. But if the S23 is not out, or if the S23 is out, you may want to take a look at some S23s in the used market, especially if they're like a really big upgrade coming from these devices. So in terms of that kind of covers this phone up in the software and longevity side. Now moving on to the performance side of this phone, this is a very good spot for this phone to be in. This phone had that Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset inside with 8GB of RAM. Now power-wise, it was pretty much the same exact thing as the Galaxy S22, which was awesome. And that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset was, I would say it was really good. It wasn't the most optimized, and definitely wasn't like the most battery resource, the best situation for the battery. But I think Qualcomm did a good job with this specific chipset, at least from the power standpoint. And from everything I've ever done with any of my phones that have 8 Gen 1 chipsets, it's been a very solid ride. It's a very good phone, has a lot of power built within it, and because this phone does have a bigger size battery, it kind of makes it a little bit of a better experience. But I played so many games on this specific chipset. I'm talking not only like actual Android games like, Genshin Impact and Call of Duty Mobile and all these other games, but also a lot of emulators as well, like heavy intensive emulators that just came out. And this chipset is very, very good. Like, of course it's not perfect, but compared even to my Google Tensor chipset, this phone, it can just handle so much stuff that you throw at it, it's not even funny. And that is one of the main reasons why I actually like this specific phone. It can handle so much that you throw at it. And I think that in and of itself is probably one of the main reasons why you'd probably want to buy this phone. So the performance is still very good. I heard the H N 2 is going to be much better, but this chipset is still very, very good for sure. Now, when you get off with the battery life, this one has a pretty big 4500 mAh battery inside of it, and that is a pretty big size battery to have on a device like this. I mean, for one, it's not like the biggest size phone of all time. It's a big phone, but that's a pretty good size battery, and you still have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. And if you do need a bigger size battery or phone, you can always go for the S22 Ultra. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is, I think the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus is still completely worth it. It was a very good phone last year. I liked it a lot, and I still think it holds up very well. Is it perfect? No, I feel like there are some areas of this phone that could have been better. For one, like I mentioned, I think the 8 Gen 1 chipset power-wise was great, but, in terms of battery life, there was some complaints there. But other than that, I think this is a very good phone. Like, it's hard to find things to complain about with this device. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.